Hi there, welcome back. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We rebranded completely. Can you believe it? First, it was my name, danielvanloosbroek.com, and nobody could pronounce that or spell that or type it in correctly. So then I thought I needed a new website. And from my own ideas, we went to CFS Healing, which is actually a terrible name. And everything that happened with that was a big struggle. Everything went wrong, from migrating the website to creating a new logo. And I was forcing my will onto this. And I was getting really stressed because of it. And then I just decided to just drop it. And I really relaxed. I came back to the flow. I meditated on the changes that we're needing. And as a result, I just saw everything in front of me the way that it is right now. So we rebranded into Release because that's the essence of what we do. And a new style, it's a bit darker, so it's really good for the ones with eye sensitivities. It's more to the point. And the old alignment recovery program, that is sort of like something that happened 4 years ago, and I did some improvements to it. But the whole idea was there at that time to still become something. And as I spoke with almost 1,000 people with chronic fatigue syndrome or other chronic complaints like burnout, fibromyalgia, or autoimmune diseases, I've learned that that is really not anymore necessary to become something else, or to learn how to be yourself again or something, because it all happens automatically. And the only thing that people do need is a release of the stressor inside of them that creates the symptoms and that is causing the resistance. And the resistance is another word for stress. So in the new program, it's really to the point. It's simple. It's practical. But at the same time, I also explain more. Because in the past, when the program was openly available, it was donation-based. I received so many emails from people who needed help or who were not committed to it or who were arguing and therefore not really committed to continue. They sort of picked out the things that they thought that would be good for them, and they left out, the painful stuff, because, healing is as well looking at the painful stuff. Healing comes from wholeness, holing. So it's about becoming whole again and about becoming who you really are. And that's as well about accepting where you are right now. Because only from a place of acceptance can you see the present moment and reality for what it is. And only when you look at it and allow it completely can it change. I've watched a YouTube comment. Someone was telling in YouTube comments that they tried everything. And then someone else commented on that, saying that, what if you stop trying? Because even the meditation that that person did was forceful meditation. So they meditated to resist reality. I want to heal. But that meant for most people to go back to your old life, to function again, to go back to your coping mechanisms. And I talk in my work a lot about coping mechanisms and why they are actually making you stressed and why it's not really living. It's not the flow. And once I gave up on how I thought how things ought to be, when I rested and waited for the flow, things sort of came to me. And instead, I was visualizing it. It just came to me while I was meditating, how everything was supposed to look, more or less. And then I started to create the website. I started to create the logo. And because I was in the flow, everything sort of happened within a few hours. All the things that I struggled with many hours before sort of just came into existence out of nothing. And I think that this is really something that we can learn, to be in a state of openness and accept what is and see what is happening, and as well accepting reality, accepting that maybe you want to change, but maybe, you need to look at reality first and become whole with it. And only then can something happen, something new, something creative can come through us. And the same applies as well in healing. First, it's important to know what healing really is, but healing comes from wholeness. So becoming whole again. So that means you were not whole before, otherwise you don't need healing. That is also, shining a different light on the past. So maybe you don't go back to your old reality, and maybe that's a very good thing. And then, okay, but why? Why is my body doing this right now? And with many hundreds of people that I spoke with, I discovered that they had a good moment before their healing journey started. Maybe something left their life, like a stressful job or a bad relationship or financial problems. Maybe they did a really nice love drug thing. Maybe they're in a new relationship with a lot of love and feeling great. So as a result, their body shifted into a place of acceptance. You give your body the message after years of not expressing the fight or flight mode, but expressing it in a negative way, that there is safety. Survival mode has ended for you, and you are finally safe. Now, we can't expect from that moment to just live happily ever after that, because there are many years or decades of suppressing energies, stress. That stress is stored in your body, and it wants to leave your body, because that's just the flow. It wants to get out of your body. Yet we have conditioned the brain to not wanting to experience these stressors. It's uncomfortable. We don't like it. We want to feel good, and we turn away from the bad feeling. So a bad emotion can be fear. A bad emotion can be anger. It can be shame. It's just unpleasant. But it wants to leave your body. But the brain is perceiving it as a danger and creates symptoms. We are getting in resistance towards this whole process, the healing process. And we get very stressed and wired because we resist healing. But healing comes, if you look at it from this way, by just being without any effort. So every time there is a symptom or there is stress, there is something that you are doing, maybe unconsciously, maybe consciously, but you're making it last longer. So it can go really fast, although we have to unlearn so many things that we perceive as normal, but they are not natural. And the more you release, the better you feel. And all the stress from the body can leave your body, and that will go in a pattern with ups and downs. So after a release, you feel good or better. Depends on how extreme you've gotten. There is an improvement. Your body wants to let go of more stress, which comes up. Your brain perceives it as a danger unconsciously. You're getting in a state of resistance. You get wired. You get nervous. You get some OCD. You get some tics. You get a lot of thoughts. And that's all a state of resistance. But once you really feel the stressor, it's usually 90 seconds. 90 seconds of a release, of really connecting with it. And in order to get to that 90 seconds, I recommend 30 minutes a day of doing release work to really get there. And then you go. you've released, you feel better. So do something beautiful. Do something out of the flow. Do something you love. Do something without pressure, without a to-do list. Just try to be present. Try to be here. Try to enjoy yourself. Because, I mean, that's what everything is about. It's not about your to-do list. Forget about your ego. Your ego has lost the game. Your ego is going to die eventually. Because, well, it sounds very philosophical. But everything we do is out of a state of resistance almost. We identify with it. And yeah, once you have no longer anything to resist, you sort of become who you are and you get back to your natural self, which is ease, which is flow. And you don't have to project your lack or your feeling of not being good enough on others or the world, the climate, or anything that we project it on. Because usually, as soon as people want to improve something that they perceive as bad in the world, they only make it worse. Because nature is an ecosystem where everything happens, everything is in balance with each other. And we're human beings. We are the only one resisting that. We are the only ones who are able to resist our flight or flight response. We are the only one who is able to resist our emotions. That's sort of like our gift, but also our nightmare. When my dog is scared, for example, he's not going to suppress that. He's afraid of a fly that crawls into his fur, and then it bites him and sucks blood from his skin. Sounds like a vampire, but it's a very tiny fly. And then as soon as he sees that fly, he's so scared, and he runs. We've got a little cage in the garden. He runs into it and he hides, and I don't see him for an hour unless he feels safe again. So that's the fight or flight response. And he applies it instantly. And as a result, after that, it's gone. It's no longer there. But we humans, we tend to, put it in our body and wait and wait and wait. And then we want to reach safety because we feel so scared, because we don't release the energy. And then everything we do becomes about safety, becomes about getting worthiness, because if you don't treat your own messages from your soul as worthy, you are yourself giving yourself the message that you are bad or unworthy. So you're enhancing the feeling. And by every coping mechanism, you're enhancing it. And by every to-do list thing that you think that you need to do, you're enhancing the underlying feelings. And the more you teach the brain via years of conditioning that you don't want to experience certain feelings and emotions and realities, the more it's going to filter that away from you. Just like, for example, a noisy fridge or sound of a car. You don't notice it anymore when it's there. But when you turn it off, you notice it instantly. So it is there, and it's deciding your life. It's deciding almost everything that you do unconsciously. But it all comes from resistance, and it all comes from stress. But at a certain point, you don't see that anymore. It becomes a blind spot. And then healing is about getting whole again. And that can be sometimes very painful, especially if you have suppressed parts of yourself, like me, since you were a little baby. I started suppressing things maybe with 1 year old or 2 years old. In some healing sessions, I also connected with the baby inside of me, the unborn child even. I mean, there are really crazy things possible when you go under hypnosis. And hypnosis is a big part of my job, my work. But then you allow it, you connect with the pain, and then it's gone. It no longer drives you to do a certain thing. So the more you heal, the less you need. And I've also discovered that the more you heal, the less you need to eat and drink. It sounds crazy. We don't eat or drink a lot, especially Valentina. For the ones who don't know her, she's my partner for 2.5 years. Well, I know her 2.5 years, and she really taught me that, I had already the alignment recovery program, but she really taught me how to go deep, how to release, and that started actually, side story, because I had a phone call, and after the phone call, I was getting really tired, and I said I need to go to bed, and she denied that, and she made me go inwards, things that I already did with clients. And we managed to release that after 5 minutes. The fear filtered through, had a release, shivering, shaking, crying, all beautiful release signs. Some people do uncontrolled laughter, which is amazing, especially in a coaching session. I love that. But some people also vomit, so it's just what it is, and it's sort of my gift to make people release and cry. That's why I had a difficult childhood as well. But it's sort of like, okay, well, this is my gift, maybe. So let's turn it around in a way that it actually benefits me and everyone else. So we don't eat a lot anymore, and I've noticed that the more I release, because I keep going, I don't have symptoms anymore because my brain is not anymore perceiving them as a danger. But sometimes the old stress can really be uncomfortable. So I noticed that after releasing so many stressors for the past years, my body just becomes so light, so flowing, so at ease. It's like sometimes I hardly notice that I'm there. My mind gets quiet because there's not a lot to resist. And Valentina sometimes mentions that it's like there's nobody laying there anymore when I'm laying in bed. And thanks to her, we really managed to dive deep and to help a lot of people with different tools. So she is a really big asset to the program. A lot of her work is in it, and I'm really grateful to work together with her, to be with her as well. And she also works as a coach, so you can book her as well for a coaching session. She's a little bit different than me. I'm probably really straight to the point, and she's more feminine, and well, so we sort of balance each other out. So I'm really happy that she is there, and we live together in Sardinia. And that's also a really cool story about the flow. So we moved here, and financially we were not in a good place, but still we took the leap of faith, and we decided to move here. And we lived in a very small thing. It was really cheap for a few months, and then we had to find something else. But that something else in the summer was something that we could hardly afford. At the same time, we also took a dog. There was a dog that we managed to meet very early on when we arrived here. And I looked at that dog and I saw, oh my God, this is my dog. I visualized him. But how can we do this? We don't have a home. We don't have a garden. We hardly have enough money for ourselves. I mean, I worked on donation based, and in the beginning as well, all the coachings were donation based. So that was a leap of faith. And we decided to move to that house and to take the dog with us. He didn't like us at all in the beginning. But immediately after going there and having the dog, life gave us more money. It's somehow, it's always logical. You can always explain it. But reality is that before we didn't have the money. And after the decision, we suddenly had the money. Dog food is around 50 euros a month. And immediately after taking the dog, we have more money. So it was sort of like life was providing us with exactly that, what we need for our next step. And we had to take care of another living being. And life did that for us. So that's how we've been going ever since that moment. We started earning still less than the minimum wage, or what is it called? Well, I don't know. But we didn't have a lot of money, but we just had enough. And from that moment on, there was a lot of tough choices that we needed to make, tough financial choices. But every time we took a leap of faith, and every time we were rewarded with it big times. And the same thing happened as well when I closed the program. I mean, I was afraid that no one would join the program. But instead, it's the opposite. Because now people get as well committed to it. And that made me able to do more stuff, to make it better, to improve things, to edit things a little bit better, and to as well create a new intro, as you hear in this podcast, and a new outro. And suddenly everything opens up just because of leaps of faith, and all the actions that we did, they were not coming from our ego, because every time we did that, things went wrong. But we meditated and decided on what would be the next step in the flow to do. And every time, because now we live in another house again, we live in a house really near the sea. It's really a bargain. It's really amazing. But that only came from the flow. And it really feels to me that life is providing us every second of every day with exactly what we need. Because although there might be fear about not being able to survive, we've always survived. We've always made it. Otherwise, you would have been dead by now. But even the moments that were not good, I mean, I had lots of them. They all helped me, because somehow life also wants to trigger the old energies that are inside of us, that are no longer serving us, the pains and everything. So for a lot of people, life is providing them in a way to really make them feel reality, to make them see it. This is your internal reality, and this is reflecting as well your external reality right now. So you're being placed in a situation that is going to trigger your childhood trauma. So maybe you live again with your parents, and that becomes an opportunity to release the emotions that you have stuck according to that situation, whether it is lack, whether it is anger, whether it is fear. And we have to really go through that. But despite that difficult situation, we always had enough to eat and drink. And in the years prior to my chronic fatigue syndrome, for me it started with 30, so there was like 30 years of suppressed emotions. So it's going to take a while with a lot of ups and downs. But I finally had a good moment in my life, finally some safety. And as a result, with 30, my healing phase started. That's how I look at it. And the only reason that it lasted for 7 or 8 years was my resistance. Because little Daniel, my ego, knew better than life itself what to do. And I think that's sort of the reason why we as a humanity, as a species, are on a rampage on this planet. Because we always think with our limited perspective and our limited intelligence that we know better than life. But life is an ecosystem. Everything serves each other. Everything fits together. But we have to take our place in that. And then it will thrive. We will thrive. And it happens automatically when we follow our emotions. So the whole reason we came into this mess is because we denied our emotions. And I think that emotions are the language of the soul. Whenever we are in a bad place, it gives us an emotion. It's usually just 90 seconds, unless we make a really big drama out of it. A 90-second is scientifically proven. And that emotion is going to stir us in a way that we are making a change, because it wants us to be joyful. But if we don't allow that, then we stay stuck. So maybe you have anger because you needed to make a change with your anger. But then you don't make a change, and then you get irritation all the time because You're complaining. You don't really want to solve the situation. You don't really want to make the moves that are necessary to put you in a better place. But if we would follow every impulse from our soul, if I take it in a spiritual way or from our body, if it more down to earth, then the purpose of these emotions are to let something go with grief, with grief, for example, or to run away from danger so that we're good again, or that we fight someone who is attacking us. And then after that, we can go back to a state of joy. And joy is right now, it's allowed. We always fake to be joyful. I mean, most people have no clue what it is to be joyful, but we fake it. So that's allowed. It's allowed to be happy. But I mean, like happiness when you're unhappy because of your stuck emotions, it's sort of fake. It's not really it. It's shallow. It's not the deep satisfaction that we can have by living on this planet in harmony. And there was a time where, as well, joy was not allowed. If you look back to the pictures of the 19th and early 20th century, we see that nobody is smiling. And I grew up in a town that was very religious, and they had the idea that we were all born in sin. We had to earn our way to heaven. And as a result, we should not really enjoy this reality, this planet, this creation. And the only thing that matters is going to heaven. And we do that by pretending to be God-fearing citizens and to suppress all our emotions. I mean, it's an idea. So nobody was happy, or at least they were not showing each other that they were happy. And the only thing that changed from that time to now is that we allow ourselves to be happy, but all the other emotions, we still think they're bad. Because it also makes sense sometimes, because when someone suppresses anger for let's say 20 years, then that anger is going to come out somehow in a very disruptive way, and then we condemn that. I think that eventually everybody has got a killer inside of them. And maybe in the beginning, when that is coming up, it can be very disturbing, especially if that's like 20 years of suppressed emotions. But I think eventually we should all have that capacity to be someone who could eventually kill someone. But only if we then allow that strength inside of us can we transform it in something positive. And then you really start to master your emotions and your feelings. So therefore, I don't condemn anybody who murdered someone or criminals, because as long as we still live in lack as a society, when we all need coping, we all feel very disturbed inside of us. This is just going to be our reality, and we have to accept that. And I think we're all creating these so-called monsters in our society by trying to be good. And we're killing the ecosystems with good intentions, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And if you then want to be a good child, for example, and that because you want to be accepted by mommy and daddy, and if being a good child means that you have no boundaries, so anger is not allowed, fear is being judged, then you start on this road of stress that is going eventually maybe cause a chronic disease or something else. You're starting that with good intentions, and it comes out of a need to survive. And for most people, almost everything they've done in life is coming out of the survival mode. And I mean, that sounds crazy, because even if you do a hobby, but if you want to be good at it, if you want to be seen because you feel so terribly unseen because you don't see yourself, then everything becomes a matter of life or death, whether it is playing football, whether it's making music. And then we all want to be seen, because we feel unseen and we can't really see that from ourselves. And then, like making this normal in an unnatural world, you arrive in the 21st century. This is our day. This is how we live. We live with a lot of rules, with a lot of restrictions. And everything that we do is sort of coming out of the survival mode, whether it is being a good citizen, a God-fearing citizen, a good father or a good mother. All these desires come from the opposite, from a duality. So allow yourself to be a bad mother. And if you really want to break the cycle, then teach your child to feel their emotions and hold space for them. Hold space for your own emotion. Make them a part of your healing journey. And try to break this cycle of suppression, of stress. Because sometimes when I speak parents with chronic fatigue syndrome, they are unconsciously still putting that same pressure that is that led them to this place, to this healing phase, on their children. And they think that this is the only way that they can have a good future, maybe by pressing them into a schooling system, making them achieve high notes, because we are afraid that our offspring will live in lack. And that's because we project our lack, our feeling of unworthiness, on our children. And that's it's really subtle sometimes, because we deceive ourselves the whole time to not having to feel those terrible sensations of not being good enough. But it's the result of constant suppression. That loneliness inside of us is because we don't see parts of ourselves. But once you completely relax and allow, then healing goes automatically. And it goes with ups and downs. But I believe healing should be no effort. So if you're forcefully meditating, then stop that. If you're forcefully trying to do a recovery program, then stop that. And ask yourself, where do I want to go? What do I want from life? Who am I? What am I here for? What can I do? Then you see that most things that we think that are important are no longer important. They don't really matter. And the purpose that why we are here also doesn't have to be something to change the world, to make it a better place. Because if we would stop fighting, we would see that it is already a good place. It's a beautiful planet. It's actually amazing. And once we step out of the way, it will just naturally take over again. And if we step into alignment, into the flow, then we take our natural place in life. And we have a lot less stress in our lives. We need less food, less sleep, but also less people. Because most people are still very stressed. And almost every situation that I encounter is someone wanting something from me, whether it is acceptance, that whether it is like looking where I am at the hierarchy of life, and then comparing with where they are, with what is their job title. And we want to be accepted, but we judge, and we are afraid of being judged. So there's a whole unconscious pattern going on with every meeting between two humans. And that can just become so stressful. And I feel that immediately, that someone is not at ease. So I try to avoid those meetings, because I'm not there to heal them. But I also want to make sure that I am not really pulled down by trying to unconsciously give them energy, or please them, or make them feel worthy, or make them even distract from their own pain by talking about our desires and everything. So healing also becomes a subtle thing personal thing, something that you don't need a lot of things anymore. Well, it's difficult to describe, but it becomes more about ease, acceptance, silence. And not everyone is ready for that. Maybe you're still here to be an adrenaline junkie. Then, live that. Go back into survival mode. You can teach your brain to go back to survival mode. It's called positive brain retraining. That works for people who are very, very young, usually, young people who don't have a lot of stressors. For me, it didn't work. When I did brain retraining, I had a good few months. And after that, I started having panic attacks because I was just suppressing and suppressing. But my body really made it clear to me that suppressing is no longer an option. And then something else I would like to talk about is money. I decided to close the program to really make people invest in it. So really work only with the ones who are dedicated to it. Because I noticed that a lot of people who donate maybe only 1 cent for the program, they actually earn more than I did. Because we were still living from very little money while working as a volunteer every day with hundreds of emails. So that just didn't feel right anymore. And most people actually turned out to have more money than they were saying, but they choose to spend it in a way that it is unsupportive for them because they refuse to make the difficult choices. A lot of people think that I was very rich in my own recovery journey. I was not. I had some savings in the beginning, but after 1 year of having fatigue and when I had to stop work, I saw that my bank account was dropping rapidly of the amount that I have. So I decided to make tough choices. I got out of my house because I could no longer afford it, although I could have probably lived there for like 2 more years before being bankrupt. But I decided to make the tough choice and I went to live somewhere really cheap. It also had its disadvantages because I was triggered with others all the time. But I think that was as well life giving me the opportunity to look at some stress that was inside of me. When I I wanted to go to the hairdresser sometimes because my hair looked a little bit bad. But I did not really have enough energy to talk with the hairdresser, and it also was quite expensive because I used to go to pretty expensive hairdressers. So I just taught myself to cut my hair, and I've never spent the money, never spent a dollar or a euro anymore on going to the hairdresser. I didn't buy any clothes, and I hardly buy any clothes right now. It's just very simple stuff, no brands. But I used to be sort of like a fashion addict. I think that is even normalized in our society. But I don't care about it anymore. I don't care about my looks anymore. It's just something that left me with all the stress that was inside of my body. But I decided to make the tough choices. And therefore, when you have chronic fatigue syndrome and you are starting your healing journey, and when you're still in resistance with, you get that when you're wired, having lots of thoughts for a very long time and you're not releasing, then your healing journey is going to take some time. And you can make it as long and uncomfortable as you want, in a way, by following what is normal in our society. So if it's going to take some time, then please make some hard and difficult choices. And because of my choices, I also went to tropical beaches in my recovery. But I lived there for very little money. I spent less money there on food, accommodation, than I did at home. And at home, I also had the heating every winter, so I needed to pay for that. And in countries like Thailand or Laos or Sri Lanka, I could eat for, let's say, €2 a day, $2 or $3 a day, and I could sleep for like $5 a day at cheap places. But I was okay with that. I wanted to make that investment because as soon as I was always in in a wonderful place where I was not really focused anymore on my problems, I always started to feel better. Sometimes symptoms disappeared within a week, or maybe just 80% disappeared. I still had some grogginess. And from that moment on, I felt so much better, and I had actually some muscle capacity. So before I was bedbound, and I never really thought that, because I was so afraid of my muscle aches that I could move again. But then only in a week time, I was able to ride a bicycle for, let's say, 10 kilometers. That's how fast it can go. And some people, they really want to build up their muscles in still at home because they don't dare to go outside because of fear. So release the fear first. They don't, well, if they want to build up their muscle by sitting first when they're laying down the whole day, sitting for a minute a day, and the next day 2 minutes, the next day maybe, or next week 3 minutes. But that's too mind driven, too mind based. It doesn't work like that. And it's not like you need to train yourself to run a marathon, because of course, if you would do that, you need like maybe 6 months of training. But I don't think that when I look at nature that running a marathon is necessary. I don't see any animal running marathons, but I see them moving in the flow and following their impulses. And that's how we can live as well. And then things can increase rapidly, but not by controlling it, not by controlling our muscles or trying to put the fears or manage the fears inside of us. But whenever there is a fear, feel it in your body. Where is it? What does it need? Give it some love. Release it, and then move forward. And then you would see that all these thoughts and planning about building up your muscles, it's all coming from a very stressful place. But if you instead start to enjoy yourself and start to flow, and also the flow and the healing process, you release something, you feel better, symptoms disappear almost, or partially. Then after some time, something else wants to come up because it needs to leave your body. You feel more stressed. Maybe something has been triggered. Instead of waiting for the symptoms to pass, you spend 30 minutes to release. And after that 30 minutes of release, symptoms improve again. And that's sort of the flow, the healing flow, the wave of recovery. So we don't need all this stuckness. We don't need to be in a state of resistance. But we need to learn how to just be. Well, it sounds a little bit philosophical, but this is really what I'm teaching and what I think is the best way forward. Because although going to a tropical beach and not being confronted with your problems is a form of brain retraining or neuroplasticity, and everything I do is a form of brain retraining, but I don't believe anymore in the brain retraining where we say stop to any negative emotion or feeling, and that we squeeze all the emotions back inside of us, because that can just become very toxic. So I don't recommend doing that. Anyway, it's December. It's getting Christmas, New Year's. I'm not really a fan of Christmas because in my childhood I really started to dislike it, with all the adults that actually hate each other but pretending that they have a good time together. So I like to be alone. So I spend it with my dog, who had become in the last 2 years a really good companion, a really good friend. He's so loyal. He's so kind. Um, oh, I just love him. I love my dog. His name is Badu, and we spend it together here near the beach in Sardinia at Christmas. I will make a fire to, I don't know why, but just plan to make a fire. And that's what I do. And then in the new year, I will start making more content again because I've been very busy with remaking the program. And then I got some more time again, can breathe again, go back into the flow more, really enjoying what it is to be and to feel and to breathe. Lightness. And from that place on, I like to create content again to inspire people to start with a release process. If it's with the program, the release program or not, I don't think that matters. But I wish you all a beautiful healing journey and a beautiful Christmas and a happy new year. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.